Hey, Cultivated crew, how are you? So I'm excited to have one of my favorite people in the whole wide world to pop on with me today, Miss Dr. Brad.
I'm Brad. Call me Brad.
I had to, pay homage to the work that you have done
Well, I appreciate that.
Yes. So before we dig in, allow me to introduce myself to all the new awesome and amazing people that have joined the Cultivated crew on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube, wherever you are. Hey, my name is Tangeray Porter, and I'm the founder of Cultivated Connections Design and Consulting. And I help educators cultivate healing, social awareness, and education through the arts. Yes, so I'm going to allow my special guest to introduce himself and tell us what does he do.
All right. Thank you so much for the invitation. I really appreciate being here with you and getting to talk with you. We haven't talked for a while, so that's good. So my name's Brad Foust, and I'm a fine arts supervisor for Bartlett City Schools, Bartlett, Tennessee, just outside of Memphis. And along with doing that, I also do some side work, got my side hustle thing going. I teach graduate courses or graduate course in music education for the University of Memphis.
Woo-hoo.
And I've been teaching music history and appreciation for about 10 years online for Southern New Hampshire University. So I also do that too. So I try to keep my feet back in the education side of what I do. I spend a lot of time, working as a fine arts administrator now, but it's also good to have that outlet too, where I get to teach. Although it's online, it's still, considered teaching. So that's a little bit about what I do.
Nice. I didn't know about the other part, so that's exciting. That's exciting. I'm all for the side hustles, all for them.
Right.
As
Right.
educators, we don't get paid all that much.
Yeah. There's lots of opportunities out there for people, who are looking for things to do. You can create your own path, and you're an example of that.
Yes, well, thank you. And all my people who are listening, y'all heard that. Forge your own path, create your own path if it's not already set up for you. Okay. So my first question for you is, did you choose music or did music choose you? Tell us that story.
Yeah. So I would say music chose me. I'll tell you a little bit about my background, a couple things. I may quote some Bible verses along the way. I'm a preacher's kid, so so I grew up around music from the time I can have my first remembrances of anything. They are connected to music. In church, obviously, my parents loved listening to music, and they weren't musicians themselves, but we were always surrounded by music. I knew that when I had the opportunity in school I wanted to be in band. It's something I knew I wanted to do. I wanted to play an instrument. And so when I had the opportunity to do that in sixth grade in Huntsville, Alabama, as a new middle school student, I took that opportunity, and that's how I got connected, formally with music. And then from there, I stuck with it through middle school, high school, and through college, and then it turned into a career. But I would say that I was born with that desire to be plugged in and involved in music and the arts. It's just, and you know how this is. It's just we're artists think differently. They look at the world differently. So that's just a way for where I plugged in and was able to get connected to people. And I have two children of my own now who are in middle school, and I tell them all the time. I said that I have friends that I still talk to today because of being involved in the arts. All my friends in school, in middle school and high school, were in band, and I was a band nerd, I guess you could say. But it was a great way to connect with people, and it helped me go to college also. So, but I would say yes, music was there with me from the very beginning.
Yes. I love that you mentioned about like the lifelong friendships. And band. I was not in band per se, but I was on the color guard.
Yeah.
favorite thing ever.
Yes.
I did it during my time at Sheffield. I went to Sheffield from the 7th through the ninth grade and loved that high step marching. And then I went to
Yeah.
town 10th through 12th. So it was like, woo, this is different. Military marching? What is that?
Yeah. Yeah.
I would not change my experience for the world just because I had the best of both worlds of two, although it was all about music, right? And creating these beautiful sounds for the crowds. The experience of having both of like high stepping, HBCU type marching and
Yeah.
performing, and more like of the classical, it was amazing. I would not change the experience for the world. Give me a flag today, and I will talk.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
need to do.
Have you seen high school marching bands lately? Oh my goodness, the things that they're doing is so theatrical. There's a lot of formal dance involved now in what they do. So yeah, it's really cool how all these art forms are kind of melding together. So you were ahead of your time.
Yes, yes, I enjoyed it. Taking me back. I haven't thought about like band and color guard in years, but I think I'm gonna have to like order a pole and go outside. Great arm workout.
Yeah, it's good exercise. Yeah.
Definitely, definitely. So thank you for sharing your story. It also just reminded me of how important it is to have the arts in the school
Yeah.
earlier on. I know there most schools or most school districts, you kind of see it in high school a lot more than you do middle and elementary. And I'm like, as an elementary teacher, I'm like, wait, what about the babies? They deserve it.
Yeah.
Like, how can we foster that earlier? Do you have any thoughts behind the why? Like why aren't there more programs in elementary? Just if you have any insight, 'cause I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's lots of answers to that question. Many times the people who look at making decisions about programs, let's say we're talking about a school or school district that does not have, say they don't have elementary music or they don't have elementary art, and actually in Tennessee, there's a state policy that deals with art and music in K through K8. I can even, I can even quote the, Tennessee Code Annotated 49-6-1025 if people want to look it up. So it's the K8 arts education policy that the state has set. But people who are making those decisions, they're going to look at scheduling, obviously time. They're going to look at funding. Because sometimes music programs or music and arts programs, visual art programs in elementary school could be expensive to start if you don't have anything there. And there are lots of resources that help people do that. I can think of several just off the top of my head that help elementary schools. If we're just talking about that level, start a program, or even in middle schools. But time and money are the two big considerations. And then there's this cultural aspect also of we've never done this before, and we don't know if we could find someone to teach these classes. And then if we're offering art and music over here, or even theater and dance, I've seen elementary schools that offer all the arts disciplines. If we're offering all of this over here, sometimes it's what I would call deficit thinking. They're doing this, kids are doing this here, they're missing out on this other thing over here. But we know that that's not the case. We know that the arts help bolster ELA and math, and that's what it usually comes down to, right? It's ELA and math, the tested subjects is what we call them in education, right? So those are a few considerations I think that people look at, and two, just understanding, which what I just alluded to, the benefits that the arts can offer students. And just a quick story. When I moved to Memphis in 2003, about almost 20 years ago, and I took a job teaching elementary music in a Title I school. And I was in a class during my first year of teaching there, and we were going through the lyrics of a song. I believe it was a third grade class. And one of the lyrics ended in the word lock. And I asked the students, what's a word that rhymes with lock? And not a single student in that class could tell me a word that rhymed with it. So, I knew very early on in my teaching in Memphis that, hey, I'm the music teacher, but I'm also bringing in elements of ELA and math, social studies,
Yes.
science.
Yes.
Also, we did a lot of movement activity, physical education. So, good arts teachers are pulling in all the different disciplines all the time. So,
Yes.
so that's something that people who aren't connected to the arts
Mm-hmm.
and are making those decisions sometimes they don't realize.
Mm-hmm. I'm the type of person, like, I often introduce myself as a multidimensional educator because I've been around. I've been in the arts. I've been in gen ed, all middle school and elementary, in charter and public. Like, it's a whole bunch of situations. Just
Yeah.
bowl of gumbo right now, right? But I would tell people when they ask me, what do you teach? And I teach dance and all the other things. Put some respect on my name. Because just like you just mentioned, like the arts is intertwined in everything.
Yeah.
And I love, like, my personal teaching experience has brought me even more joy of being able to actually, especially with the kindergartners, bring in those rhyming skills or those literacy skills inside of the classroom. Because, like, not only do you need this, but I actually know how to collect the data.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
To support you in your learning, whether it's we're creating alphabets with our bodies, but also, saying the sound or what have you, and then drawing it out. Let's draw. Let's write your name. Let's do the magic, finger that you do in your regular kindergarten class. But yeah, we're also doing it here, but with our whole bodies. So I love that you brought that point out about the arts being the pillar of education. Can we just name it?
Yes, and a big part of my work, and I know your work too, has been working in arts integration. I've done that. That's the whole reason why. That's how I got into arts administration. Is I was teaching in that same school that I mentioned in 2009. The district I was working in there hired a person where they posted a job for someone to be a facilitator for an arts integration grant. And I thought, oh, okay, I want to investigate this and see what this is all about. So I looked into it, and I thought, I'm interested in this. I do these sorts of things in my teaching all the time because I'm bringing in other subjects into my music classroom. So applied for the job, and then took that position, and left the classroom. But I was working with teachers across all disciplines, and to give them some professional learning on how the arts can, like you said, be that pillar of education, and how it brings all the different subject areas and different ways of thinking and learning together. Yeah,
I definitely agree. Let's address the crowd. So, crowd out here, whoever's watching, if perspective is changing about how the arts is thought about on a district level, give us some flowers in the chat, okay? Because your perspective is growing. And I borrowed that line from a good friend of mine who is a consultant but does the social emotional learning aspect of things. So I had to borrow that because I just loved it. So put a flower in the comments. Your perspective is growing about arts education, arts administration. Like Brad has said a whole lot, and I'm over here taking notes too. I'm like, wait, go back and look that up.
Well, I have to tell you, I've learned a lot just because I've put myself in situations where I didn't know what I was doing. I want people to know, and I want anyone who's listening to this or will listen to it in the future who's either in education or thinking about getting into education, especially as an arts educator. You're going to face situations where you're wondering what you're doing and you've made a wrong decision and you want to just throw it all away and start over. Quit your job and move somewhere else and start over. Every educator goes through that. So when I took this job facilitating this grant, this arts integration grant, which was a U.S. Department of Education grant, a huge deal, a $1.2 million grant. I could have really messed that up. But immediately my first week in that job, I was calling people.
Mm.
I visited arts integrated schools in several states. I went to the Kennedy Center and did training there in arts integration, and I've made some really good friends through those connections. And I know we're going to talk about this, but you can find your own way if you're in situations where you're trying to figure things out, and you may not necessarily work in a place where you have resources readily available, or you don't have the people that you can go to. There's so many different avenues today where you can connect with people and get the learning you need to.
Agree. Agree. And I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that was my next question of like, did you receive any mentorship or professional development training other than what you received in college? So before we dig into that question, was your major music or music education?
Yes. Well, so my bachelor's degree is in music education.
Okay.
And through the grace of God, I majored in music ed for my bachelor's degree, because I considered majoring in music performance. But when I went to college, when I started college, I knew I wanted to do something with music. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. And so my advisor, thank goodness for him, my advisor said, you need to major in music education. So that's what I listened to him, and that's what I did. And I'm glad I did that. But so when I finished that degree, and I went straight into graduate school, and my master's degree is in music performance. My doctorate's in music education, and I also did an administrative certification program through Christian Brothers University in Memphis. So that's like a postgraduate certificate type program. But so I did that to get my certification to be an administrator. But so to answer your question about the early days, what PD did I have? None. My first teaching job, this is a funny story, it's true. So I'm sitting at my graduation from Eastern Kentucky University. I'd finished my master's degree in music performance. So I knew I was going to start looking for teaching jobs. I considered going on at that point and doing a doctorate degree in music performance. My goal then was to teach. I wanted to be a full-time professor at a university. And that was 5 years ago. That's what I thought I wanted to do. And so I'm sitting next to this person at my graduation, and she's talking all about how she already has this job lined up. This is in May of 1998. How she has this job lined up, and she's going to teach elementary general music. Now, I'd done a degree in music education, music performance, all band related. So I'm thinking, I'm going to do something. I'm going to be a band director. That's what I thought I would do. And I remember hearing her say that, I remember thinking, who on earth would want to teach elementary general music? That was the furthest thing from my mind. And guess what? I ended up teaching elementary general music for 11 years. But my first teaching job was at a private K-12 private Christian school in Portland, Oregon. And I was the school's only music teacher. And I can remember the day I was sitting in the principal's office, and he told me, oh, by the way, because I didn't know this when I interviewed for the job. When I interviewed for this job, it was middle school, high school band. Okay, I can do that. They had a person who came in and taught choir part-time. I thought, okay, I could have taught choir, but I just didn't think I was prepared for that. So I remember the day I was sitting in his office, and he said, oh, by the way, you're going to take our K-5 general music classes. And I panicked.
Right.
Because my training in my undergrad program, although I went to a great school and I learned a lot of things there, but in my mind, I'm thinking, I'm not prepared to handle teaching kindergartners. I can't do that. I didn't know what I was going to do. I'd already signed a contract, so I did.
Right.
So I started looking for resources, and of course I was by myself at this school, so there's not anyone else I could talk to. And of course, this was back in the days before you couldn't just jump on the web and find 50 resources on how to teach elementary general music. So I survived that first year, and then I ended up going into actually went to another school where I only taught general music, and I did that for 3 years. And I followed a person there who was very skilled at teaching general music and was well known in the community, and was almost like a legendary type teacher in this area for general music. So, but he left behind some resources and materials for me, and I used every single one of them.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. And I used what I had there. I studied those curriculum guides that came with our music content series. Like it was the Bible. that was my Bible of teaching. I studied those. I knew them inside and out. I learned all the music, and so that's how I survived. I didn't really have district-led professional development opportunities until I moved to Memphis. So my first 5 years of teaching, it was me finding my own way. But even back then, I used what I could find. And then I can remember struggling with classroom management, which is a huge issue I know that all teachers have, but in the arts, it can be something that we don't get a lot of training on, or in your internship or your residency, you're working with people, and you may see a classroom management style that you like and that you model yourself after, or you may be with someone who completely does things 180 from what you would do them. So, but that's just part of the learning process. But I can remember going to the library and finding this book called The First Days of School.
Ooh.
Have you read this book? Have you read this book?
I haven't read it yet, but I've heard of it.
The First Days of School. If people out there are listening, if you're in education or you're in school and you want to be a teacher at some point, get that book. It's been out for, I found it back in the late 90s, so it's been at least that long or longer. I checked that book out and read it and started implementing things. And so today there's all sorts of resources available. If you don't get it through your district, you can find people like you are offering great opportunities to connect with people and learn. And the professional organizations too. You think about Tennessee, and of course this applies to other states too, but there's so many different ways there to get connected, attending conferences and workshops and connecting in person with people. Now that we can do that again, that's so important.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you're not in a situation where you're not getting that district-led professional development, there's lots of ways to do that. And sometimes you just have to take the initiative and decide, okay, I've got to find my way here. I've got to find what I need to survive and thrive. But we don't want people just in survival mode. We want them to thrive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. And I love that you mentioned like the survival mode, because I too had purchased. Hold on, let me take the back of the screen off, the background. Where did it go? Somewhere in here. Okay. All right. So I purchased this book off of Amazon 2013. And y'all can see my sticky tabs. And I think I showed you last week too. Because it was one of those things of like, I took all the dance classes in college and it was like, yay, but we only had like 4 education classes.
Yeah.
That was the intro to the intro of education.
Right.
And then with my experience, there was a situation with our teacher program in our dance education program where they were not connecting, talking. I don't know what happened, but that's another story for another day. So I was blessed to be in the school system while you were art supervisor. Yes. As well as, having 2 awesome mentors. So I'm going to shout them out to Vita and Noelia. Like,
yeah.
Dance mentors at the time. It was Tavita that taught me how to write curriculum, and it was Noelia that taught me how to incorporate choreography and more of like the performance aspect. But it was you who would call us and say, "There's a PD coming up." Even though it wasn't necessarily tailored to dance,
Yeah.
just being around other arts educators was amazing. I still have the books from, I think it was like the visual based thinking.
Oh yeah,
I
yeah.
forget what school it was. I can't remember the school it was at, was being hosted at, but I use that. I still use that book to this day. That is still one of my favorite strategies
Yeah.
ever. In the
Yeah.
school that I was at the time, as a first year teacher, we had started doing work with what was it, Focus 5 with
Focus
Sean.
5. Sean Lane, yeah.
We'll use Sean Lane's work as far as like the mindset. We do the actors toolbox every day. So although I say all this to say, although some of the arts, PDs that you go to may not fit in what you actually teach, like I teach dance, it still can be used. So
Right.
I appreciate you for being the person that was always asking about, what do you need? What do you think you need? Here's a PD. Here's a resource. Here's something. Because we in there, myself, Ebony, who will be on with us next Sunday.
Yeah.
Who else? It was Sarah. So Sarah, if you're watching, hey.
Sarah, yeah.
Walked into dance education in Memphis, and we were like, okay, what do we do?
Right.
Yes, and every school I want to say had a new program, which I think was, with the exception of Sarah's school. So
Yeah.
we had Tree Ridge Middle with Ebony and me at Georgia Hills Middle, and we're like, oh, it's just us. This is what we do. Okay. What are routines and procedures? I don't know.
Oh, yeah, that's my first year of teaching was just like that. I was just the principal gave me the key to the room and said, "You're the expert." He told me this. I remember him saying this. "You're the expert. You go teach." I'm not the expert. I'm still learning. My son turns 15 Tuesday, and so he's going to take his test to get his learner's permit. I was thinking about this earlier today. He's going to practice driving with me and his mother for a year, and then when he turns 16, he'll get a license. He has a license to drive, but there's a reason why insurance rates are higher on teenagers, because they're still learning what they're doing.
Yes.
And with teaching, for me, I just have to speak from my perspective. Teaching for me, I thought about this when you put the word out that you're doing the series, which I think is so much needed. It took me a good 4 to 5 years to really figure out who I was as a teacher, what I wanted to do as a teacher, to feel fairly confident that I could keep things under control, produce a good product, because that's part of what you do as an arts educator. You have the academic concerns, but you're also running a program too at the same time. So you've got to think about that. So yeah, it took me a while to really get settled in. Yeah.
I definitely agree. You mentioned something about the principal saying like you're the expert, and I think people have to realize. And I think Tamara and I last week also mentioned this too. Yes, I'm an expert of my content.
Yes.
I can teach you dance all day long. You can teach music all day long. But when it comes to all the other things, just even understanding the educational lingo.
Yeah.
I was like, who is Marzano? Who is this cat?
Right.
Well, what is that? And Bloom's taxonomy, like I knew who Piaget was from psychology.
Right.
I knew the theorists, the educational theorists, their names, but as far as like application of writing a lesson plan and unit plans, that was not taught. What is the standard?
Yeah. Well, here this makes me feel really old, but it's true. Right during the time when I was doing my undergraduate degree was when the very first set of art standards were written. That was in '94 is when they were released. Yep. And of course they were updated in, I believe, 2014, I believe. Yeah, the national standards were updated in 2014.
Yes.
So we weren't even talking about standards when I was learning how to be a music educator. Those were just completely new on the scene. Now we were talking a lot about how to manage. And I'm glad I learned these things, how to manage a program. And really from the perspective that I learned in my undergrad program, it was all centered around mostly middle and high school band and a very little about elementary teaching, which is what I did in my teaching career, what I did the most of.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. And I love that you mentioned about the standards, because when I came in 2013, we were still using the 94 standards.
Right. That's right.
We're like super explicit of students will learn, how to enter into the classroom. Whereas now it's like the domains and super broad. It's like, okay, I understand how to do it now because I saw the original version from 94, right?
Yeah,
So,
those were, yes.
Chug. And I also have had experience with actually analyzing standards, but that was because I did gen ed for 4 years, 4 years. And when I got that experience, that would have been totally different. But it's just crazy how even in Tennessee now, there's still very little PDs about classroom management or how to just write curriculum for arts educators.
Yeah. Those are the types of things that people, those types of issues are things that people have to look for and find things on their own. There's a ton of research out there on teachers' perceptions on all sorts of things. If you're wanting to look at lists of things people wish they knew, people have written whole books on it. Things I wish I knew, as a first year arts teacher, or 5 years into my career or whatever. And those things are usually at the top of the list. Writing lesson plans and curriculum and classroom management, managing the budget, those you have to almost in some cases be a community relations type person, depending on what school you're in and the expectations of the principal in that school. Those are things that people have to almost always learn through experience, but there are great resources out there that people can use to help. And I know you're going to be doing. Aren't you planning to do some things along those lines, right? To help teachers with those things. So there you go. You already have a resource available.
Yes, so I'll put a shameless plug in. February 5th at 1:00. We have a free webinar. So come and get the free, because we teachers are broke. So come and get the free. It's called Surviving the First Year. It's the Arts Educator edition. So make sure you tap into the link in the bio. If you're watching, no matter where you're watching, the link in the bio has information.
Yeah. That's it. It's important for people out there to, whether they're in the profession or they're looking to get into the profession, to hear some tips and strategies for how to make it through that first year. It can be difficult.
Yes.
It can be difficult.
And even considering, like, what part of the year did you start when the kids started? Remember, school was in session.
I forgot about that. That's right. Yeah.
So here I am, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, like, yay, I'm teaching dance in a middle school, public school, which was like legit my dream. I wanted to teach dance in I hate that it's the word inner city, but a Title I school with kids that look like me. Like, that was so important to me. And I got there, I was like, they're gonna love to dance. No. They eventually learned to love dance, but we had to get through all the other layers of teacher vacancies, because that year we had a lot of teacher vacancies at the beginning of the school year. So even just understanding, like, children are doing children things, but it's because we're missing adults
right
to help the children get their lives together. So I remember my first year like it was yesterday, and I would do it all over again. It was amazing. It was amazing. It molded me into the person that I am, along with you and my whole crew of fine arts educators at the time. Yes. So what would you tell your beginner self?
So thinking back to that very first year when I taught and learned that I would be teaching K-5 general music along with 6 middle school and high school band. Yeah, knowing what I know now, one of the first things I would tell myself is, you don't underestimate yourself. Yeah. It was difficult learning on the job. I could handle the band part pretty well. Of course, there were some things there I still needed to learn too, just through experience, which is we're all in the same boat when it comes to that. But I was completely unprepared to be an elementary music teacher, and it was difficult learning on the job. I was trying to stay ahead of where the students were. It's funny to say that because I was an adult teaching children, but that's the big thing is, don't underestimate yourself.
Yes, and tiny people can be intimidating. That's what they don't say. Like,
oh yeah,
cute as they are, they can be a little intimidating.
yeah, because when you have a 5 or 6 year old in your classroom and they're having a meltdown, and the things you would normally do to help a student of any other age, they don't work with kids that age. you have to know you have to handle them in a different way.
Yes. Like, do you need a hug?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
My students now come to me, Miss Porter, I need a hug. I'm upset. I'm like, coronavirus. But okay.
Oh, the first several years of teaching, I caught so many different things, and every single year for about, I don't know. When I was teaching elementary music, this happened to me almost every year. I would lose my voice at least once a year.
Yeah, me too.
Just because if I wasn't talking in class, I was singing in class, and it was just nonstop because I had classes all day, every day. I didn't have big breaks in my schedule, and at least when I was teaching, when I moved to Memphis and I was teaching here, it was once I started teaching in the morning, it was almost straight through to the afternoon with almost no break every day. So yeah, I definitely can relate to that. Yeah.
Yes, and with tiny people, you tend to make up songs when they start to tweak on your nerves a little bit. It's like, go sit down.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yes. Awesome. So where can we find you if you wanted to share any handles or LinkedIn pages? Where can we find you to continue to pick your brain?
So if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can find me at Foust Music. I mainly use that account to tweet out things that are happening in the school district. So if you want to see the things we're doing in Bartlett at Foust Music, you can follow me there. I'm on Facebook also. I'm also on LinkedIn. I believe still at Foust Music. You can find me there on LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. Well, I thank you so much, Brad, for doing this with me. It meant the world to have you just say, yes, I'll do it. And I'm like, yay!
Oh, I jumped at the opportunity. Yeah, it's great to talk to you and talk to all the people who are plugging in and listening to you. And I know you're going to do wonderful things for people. So I'm just happy to be a small little part of what you're doing now. So thank you.
No, I appreciate you so much because you believed in us. You're 20 of just you guys got it. Let me know what you need. And I could genuinely say, other than you, we really didn't have that. It was us against the world. And it was okay, let's call Tavita. Let's call Noelia.
Right.
Call Taurus. Yay, Brad. Just, you really believing in us and kind of shielding us in a sense. That's the way I can describe it. Just shielding us as best as you could of just this can work, even though you might not have the resources or this is not the top tier situation. I was teaching the gym.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
There are no ballet bars in there, but we can use chairs. Yay.
And you did. You made it work. You used my friend Amanda Tudor, who's an awesome art teacher, uses this quote all the time. Use what you have where you are, or if there's something like that. Do what you can with what you have where you are. That's it. And you did that. You definitely did that. So that's something to that's words to live by.
They learned ballet that year.
They did. And I bet those kids, they'll remember that experience for the rest of their lives. They will.
Yes, it's crazy to know that they're off, probably in college
Yeah.
right now. That was middle school. So
yeah.
Whoa. But that is all we have for you guys tonight. I'm going to pop this quick graphic up just as a repeat of the webinar. So tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to come and hang out with us on Zoom that day. Whoops, go away. And also connect with Mr. Brad on Twitter at Foust Music. Now I got to get my Twitter account back because I need to follow you. So we're going to sign off.